Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back with another video, and this is going to be episode 23 of the LEGO Star Wars MOC Showcase. This is a series I've created to highlight some of the best MOCs I've come across on the internet, so if you find any of the MOCs in this video impressive, all I ask that you go to the links I've included in the description and support the builders by giving them a like, comment, or even a follow. The first build we're going to take a look at today are a couple of monochromatic builds by Pascal, Hetzel, and there's not really much to talk about these builds in terms of the detail, at least for this first one, because it's basically just the Lego set, but it's built entirely out of white pieces. How aesthetically pleasing is this? I've seen a few of these builds on Flickr, and I figured, why not include those in the showcase? I feel a few of you guys should definitely get a kick out of it, but it just looks so nice. Like, it's like almost a Lego X-Wing statue, right? Something you would see like in someone's home, like on a pedestal somewhere. I don't know, but I think this is just a really inspiring build. There's no telling what you could expand upon this with. You could do so many other large vehicles in a monochromatic color, specifically the white, which I prefer just because it does look very statuesque. So I give him a lot of credit for just coming up with such a unique and novel idea. I don't know if I've seen many other people do Star Wars vehicles like this. If we move on to the next photo, we see a little bit more of a custom build. So this is actually a trench run. The trench run on the left looks pretty awesome. I love the custom smaller scaled X-Wing there with the turbo lasers firing at it. I love the Death Star trench run sequence so much, so it's always cool to see it recreated in Lego. One of the other nice things about the MOC on the left, I feel, is just the scale of the greebling. I feel one thing a lot of people can do when building like a Death Star trench run is they try to just shove in as many like greeble pieces as possible, because the Death Star surface is mostly just all greebles, but the scale of it is super important. If you have, let's see, it's something like a minifig scale X-Wing, or even half a minifig scale X-Wing, you're gonna want for the like greebles on the surface of the Death Star to still be relatively large. You don't want to be using just a hodgepodge of small pieces, because a lot of the stuff on the surface of the Death Star is relatively large machinery, so your greebling should scale well with your X-Wing, and I think he does a really good job at that here. There's a bit of a consistency with the just overall design and aesthetic of the greebling, but it still looks uniform in a way. It doesn't just look like a random mess of just random light gray pieces. So I give him a lot of credit for doing that there. To take everything I said with that and basically just apply it to the right side MOC as well. Once again, I just love these all white monochromatic builds. It looks so sweet. It's, I guess, like an artsy kind of approach to Star Wars MOC. So I love these things so much. Definitely let me know what you guys think about it. Is this something you could see yourself building, or even just wanting to have on a shelf? I could definitely see myself wanting to have maybe a few monochromatic builds just because of how aesthetically pleasing they are. So wonderful job on these MOCs. I think your trench run looks incredible, and the monochromatic version of it is just that much sweeter. Next up, we're going to take a look at a TIE Interceptor Mach from the First Order by Edge of Bricks. This is actually from episode 9, and I always love it when people do this. They put out MOCs of vehicles that we've only seen in trailers or only seen in reference material before the film has even come out. I just love how proactive this community can be, so I firstly want to give them credit there, because there aren't any like great shots of this thing so far. It's literally just what we've seen in the trailer. So this is, I guess, some sort of revamped version of Kylo Ren's TIE Silencer from The Last Jedi, and the trailer would lead you to believe that Kylo is piloting this. However, I would honestly assume he's probably not, because that's kind of how Star Wars marketing works nowadays. Like, if you see something or they're trying to lead you to believe something in the trailer, it's almost safer to just assume the opposite. But anyways, in terms of the actual build, I love how consistent it is with the Lego TIE Silencer. Like, if you were a big collector of just like the Lego sets, like the First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter, as well as Kylo Ren's TIE Silencer, this thing will fit right in with it. The design aesthetic is just right on par with it. If we move to the next photo, we get a better look at the back of the ship, and I just love how smooth everything looks. He's using a lot of those 1x2 curved slopes, but like with the 45-degree angle in them, and I think it looks really good, especially on the back of this vehicle. Honestly, I'm not even sure if we get a decent look at the back of this vehicle in the trailer. If we do, then I mean, I'm sure, you know, great job at building it. Otherwise, great job at being creative and just imagining what the back of this thing might look like. Either way, it looks really good to me, so wonderful job there. If we move on to the next photo, we get a better look at the cockpit, and I really feel like he just nailed the cockpit almost perfectly. I think the use of those like red flag pieces for the kind of like triangular or maybe trapezoidal shapes of the red on the cockpit look really nice, and then those curved slopes that kind of wrap around the top and bottom of the cockpit looks really nice as well. And all in all, this is just a really nice looking model. Like, if this is what, like, I could totally imagine Lego having put this set out, like, without a doubt. Like, if someone leaked this photo and said, oh, this is what like the new Lego set's gonna be, it's the new TIE Interceptor from the First Order, I would totally just be like, oh, okay, cool, like, that's totally a Lego set. I have no doubt whatsoever. So all in all, just great job of making a premium model, especially from episode 9, which isn't even out yet. You just get so much credit for taking the liberty to do something like that. Next up, we're going to take a look at a Kashyyyk Hut build by Drew from Rebel Lug on Flickr, and man, oh man, this thing is so good. This has to be the best Lego representation of one of those like Kashyyyk Huts that I've seen ever. I think that the way the slopes just work together on the top is excellent. It really just makes your mind wonder, how in the heck did he even accomplish that? But clearly he did, and it looks so good. Like, this is just such a nice, clean model of that Kashyyyk Hut. Like, it's just so aesthetically pleasing. I can't say enough good things about just how good this thing looks, even if we're not like trying to look at the nuances and small details on it. But if we want to dive in deeply, or if we want to dive in a little bit deeper, one of the things I really like about this is those curved flex tubing pieces on the edges of it, and there's like the light gray assemblies attached to it. There's just, they make a nice complement to the mostly brown structure of it. I actually like that quite a bit. He even has the like light gray, or maybe that's even dark gray, the circles kind of built into the ground of the hut. So you can see they kind of cut into the studs that otherwise would be sticking up. So that looks really nice as well. I think there's some like really cool, interesting things going on with the pillars that actually hold up the hut. I love how he uses the minifig neck bracket piece in brown to connect the 1x4 tiles to have those little protrusions there. So that looks really good as well. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a great picture of the interior of this thing. Well, really just the inside where the chairs are. But here is a picture of the chairs. They're good looking chairs. Not much to say about it. The chairs look nice. And if we go on to the next photo, we get an even better look at the top of the hut and just how nice that like half cone shape looks from the top of it. So wonderful job on this thing. I would really love to see a large scale Kashyyyk built using huts of this style. It looks so good. If I ever do Kashyyyk, I will definitely be coming to this picture and trying to figure out how the heck he accomplished this, because this is such a wonderful looking build. And I think this is another just nice small vignette build. People are always asking me for ideas for builds, and this is a nice, just like, it's like what, like maybe a half a base plate, a fourth of a base plate, and it doesn't take up much room, but it just looks so aesthetically pleasing, and the moment you look at it, you know exactly what it's supposed to be. So this is definitely an idea for someone who's just looking for a small thing to work on, small thing to build that can fit on a shelf but still looks really nice. Next up, we're going to take a look at a Supremacy build by a builder on Flickr by the name of Angel Serrano. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, but this thing is so incredible. So at first glance, it's pretty obvious this is supposed to be fitting in with the system scale line of Lego sets. So and that's literally what it is. It even opens up so you can see the interior on it. But before we get into that, I really wanted to talk a bit about the exterior. There's just a really nice usage of wedge plates here to make some of the more complex shapes in the Supremacy. I really love on the very front how those wedge plates kind of come together to actually make a straight line. I don't know if it's like kind of easy to convey, but basically what you do in this build is the whole thing is kind of built at an angle, like the two big wings, and then as they meet in the middle, you use wedge plates to basically kind of create a straight line going down the middle of them. So I always like when people do Star Destroyers that way. The other cool thing about this is just the greebling up top. It looks so good. It looks so good. I think the spurts of light trans blue 1x1 studs there also looks really nice to kind of represent the various lights that would be there in the main greeble section. And just the overall design of this thing is fantastic. But if we really want to see something cool, let's go to the next photo, and we have the interior. Now, For one, I want to say I love the Star Destroyer set. The Lego First Order Star Destroyer set I think is incredible. I think it's easily the best Star Destroyer that they've done at that scale. This build is incredible from the outside, and then the interior is really just knocked out. And I think Lego just knocked it out of the park with the interior, and this build is no different. For one, it looks really consistent with it. You can see he actually used a lot of the stickered pieces from that, so it actually makes a ton of sense. We have quite a few scenes kind of going on here, which I think is pretty cool. If you look on the right side, we have Finn about to be executed on the ground, surrounded by a bunch of stormtroopers. So I thought that was kind of a funny thing to include in there. If we look in the very middle, we have a classic Star Destroyer bridge, so that's really cool as well, especially with just how much room he allocated to those sections at the very bottom where the I guess First Order technicians and officers would be working on the computers. It just looks really nice and detailed down there. I'm glad he devoted so much room to that. And then of course on the far left side we have what would probably be the main room in this, and that is Snoke's throne room. And it's obviously shrunken down quite a bit because this is not like a giant build by any means, but it just, I don't know, I just love the fact that he went out of his way to include it anyways. Like if Lego wanted to make this a playset, like this could be sold as is as a playset for the Supremacy. It includes all the scenes that you'd really want from this, like the execution scene as well as the Snoke's throne room scene, and of course you get your typical Star Destroyer bridge. So there's not really any more I could ask out of this build. What I'm actually planning on doing with this series in general is just including more builds like this, like ones that are pretty consistent with the Lego line of sets, because I feel like that's a feat in itself to make a set that is consistent with Lego's build philosophy. That just shows a lot about, you know, how good you are as a builder. So I really love this build so much. I think ideally I'd probably want something UCS size in terms of the Supremacy, but this is really just the total package when it comes to playability as well as design aesthetic. And the final mock we're going to take a look at today is by Brickaholic. It depicts the scene from Star Wars Rebels where Ezra and Sabine go to an Imperial installation and actually steal a TIE Defender. This thing is so freaking cool. I'm so glad he decided to build this. So let's talk a little bit about it. For one, the thing I probably like the most about this mock is the TIE Defender. He's using Jarek's ties, which is always the way to go on this, but he actually changed the trim around the edges of the wings to red because that's what color they were in the actual episode. So good job at paying attention to the detail there. I also really love the Imperial Tower over to the right side. At the very top of it, those are some complicated shapes to do, especially with the signature Imperial or even Star Destroyer triangular windows in there. It looks like he's using some ball joints to accomplish that angle. I actually give him a lot of credit for coming up with that design because that's not an obvious thing to build at all. So wonderful job at being able to accomplish that. It actually looks really nice up there. The use of those scaffolding pieces on the back of the tower actually look really nice as well. If we look down to where the main, I guess, landing platform is, we have Thrawn with I guess he's with Governor Price and a pilot, and he's shooting up at the TIE Defender because Thrawn decides to shoot his blaster at TIE Defenders. That'll stop them in any way, shape, or form. But over to the left side, we have our boy Ezra trying to stall and handle a couple of stormtroopers. There's cargo crates all over this thing. I also love how he has a snot pattern for the actual ground. You can get some nice fine lines in there, so good usage of snot in that as well. And yeah, there's just so much to talk about with this mock. If we move on to the next photo, we get a better look at not only Ezra, but also the cargo crates next to him. And I think that's actually a pretty cool, decent design for the cargo crates. It's also a good use of that 1x1 printed tile with the Imperial logo on it. I actually like that quite a bit. I also appreciate the fact that he's using the newer stormtroopers. I'm glad to see those populating more and more often now in mocks. The next photo gives us a better look at the road. So we got a couple of Death Troopers up front, and then of course Thrawn in the back with Governor Price, and just some random stormtroopers kind of about on the platform. Over to the left side, I actually really like that scene. He is using one of the I guess, I don't know what you'd call them, but the Imperial landing but like the Imperial landing crew guys, the thing that Jyn Erso disguises herself as in Rogue One, and they even have like the air traffic direction cones in their hands, and it looks like we have a TIE fighter pilot making his way either into the cockpit of a TIE fighter or out of the cockpit of a TIE fighter. So just a lot of life to this MOC, I feel. If we move on to the final photo, we get an even better look at the TIE fighter situated on the side of the MOC, and I just love the fact that he used Jarek's ties here. It's cool to see 3 Imperial Jarek's ties used in one MOC. It just has a really nice design aesthetic, I feel. And I also like how like right below where the TIE fighters are sitting, he used the grill tiles rather than just like light bluish gray flat tiles. I think that those actually look really nice, and I mean, I'm not sure if he decided to do that because it's accurate or because he just ran out of the normal tiles and decided to just try to fill in that space with the grill tiles that he may have had more of, but either way, I think it just looks really nice there. So all in all, this is such a fantastic MOC. I love this thing so much. I would really like to see it in person at some point. I probably won't, but it still would certainly be nice too. So Brickaholic, wonderful job on this thing. I've been following the progress on this thing for quite some time. I'm glad you finally got it done, and it is so nice to actually be able to incorporate this thing into the LEGO Star Wars MOC showcase.